Well, the month of April's here, so that means it's time to show you some of my favorite things I got in the month of March. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is my favorite things, my favorite pickups for the month of March 2023. You guys know I kind of shut down. I stopped doing like straight up haul videos, but I do get a lot of cool things in from time to time. And I figured instead of just showing you everything I bought, I would show you some of my favorite things and explain to you why they're my favorite pieces that I've added to the Comics Are Dope library in a given month. This time is March 2023. So before I go any further, we got some single issues, we got some collected editions, and speaking of collected editions, huge shout out to our channel sponsor, Organic Price Books, who are the best place to go for these collected editions, whether it's in-stock books, pre-orders, back-ordered content. You can find it all at Organic Price Books for some of the best prices around with the greatest packaging and the best customer service in the game. So if you're interested in shopping at Organic Price Books, use the link in the description below. You can use my coupon code BJKicks to save $2 at checkout. Or if you're buying 3, 4, 5 books at a time, use the code BJKicks, ship it together. You'll save 5% on your entire order. Thanks for sponsoring the video, OPB. Now, let's get into some of these books. Like I said, we're going to start with the collected editions, and there are quite a few of them. I'm going to start with 2 that are special to me for... Actually, no. This is what I'm going to start with. The book that came first. So, this is the Bitter Root Omnibus hardcover book 1. This from Image Comics. Bitter Root is a series written by David F. Walker and Chuck Brown with art by Sanford Green. And the Bitter Root is just one of the better series I've read since I've been in comics. It's one of those series that just hits home. It's about a family of monster hunters that is set during the Harlem Renaissance in both Harlem, New York, as well as parts of South Carolina, Georgia. It's a dope book. And if you're not familiar with it, basically the monsters that they're battling are built from hatred. So they're kind of battling the monster of racism, but without doing it in such a preachy type of way. It's a really good book, a really great series. And I wanted to bring this one up first because I did an overview of this for OPB, by the way. But one of the cool things about this book is that, yes, it's a monster hunting book with art by Sanford Green. Listen, Sanford Green drawing monsters, drawing anything is a reason to buy the book. But also intertwined throughout this series are these essays in a series called Bitter Truths. And these Bitter Truths essays are essays from like academics and researchers from all over the place who study like whether it's African American or diaspora studies, creative arts, writing, but these essays sort of live at the intersection of this like fiction and academia, and it offers really good context for the stories and the things that we see and the themes we see in the book. And the Bitter Truths essays in this book are compiled and curated by a guy named John Jennings, who is a comic book writer and artist in his own right. You might know him from the recent series Silver Surfer Ghostlight. I actually reviewed issue 2 on the channel in a YouTube short, and John Jennings himself saw it and responded pretty well to it. And he let me know that, hey, he doesn't just write comics. He also is the curator of basically a full publishing sub imprint over at Abrams Comic Arts. And so he's actually the curator of the Megascope line over at Abrams. And he sent me a few books from their collection. So right here are a couple of them. I can't show you all of them in this video. I'm going to do a separate video giving you a closer look. But here are 2 that I'm most excited to get into first. This one is Queenie, Godmother of Harlem, based on a true story, a real person, Stephanie St. Clair, who was a Harlem legend in the 30s in the Prohibition era. So very cool stuff. This one's got really dope art. It's all mostly black and white. I think it's all black and white actually, but it looks really good. It's based on a true story, and this is the one I'm most excited to read. But next up is this one. This is Black Star. Two scientists basically are on an alien planet fighting for a ship there's really only one way home. And so they're fighting to get home, is the premise of this book. And that is really cool. So with the Megascope line, the whole point is to highlight both characters and creators of color, but also give them stories that aren't just necessarily rooted in trauma, but can be like Afrofuturist at times. You might call it speculative fiction. Anyway, I'm going to give a closer look at that Megascope line from Abrams in a different video, but I wanted to show that off because that marks the first time I've actually worked with a real publisher to bring content to this channel. So huge thanks to John and Abrams Comic Arts for setting those over. Next up is another book that I got right toward the beginning of the month. There was a whole big scare, a big furor about this book. This is The Complete Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. This is the older hardcover set from Fantagraphics. What's funny is when I ordered it, I thought it was standard size, but as you can see, it's the same size as an omnibus edition. In fact, it's slightly bigger. So a pleasant surprise for this library edition. But I bought The Complete Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck because apparently Disney is not going to allow it to be reprinted in its entirety. There are a couple of stories that, feature some, I guess, racially insensitive imagery, I guess is what we would call that. And so because of that, those stories won't be reprinted, and therefore The Complete Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck can't be reprinted. So when these go out of stock, whether it's this, the Fantagraphics hardcover set, or the big platinum huge jupe, I don't know what they called it, but it was a huge oversized edition of The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. It came with like a commemorative coin. Whenever that's out of stock, and whenever this is out of stock, the story is going to be gone. So I wanted to grab it. Why it's my favorite, one among my favorites, it just brings me joy to thumb through it, right? Like, I wasn't a big DuckTales kid. I didn't super appreciate the DuckTales arena of the Disney content, with the exception of Darkwing Duck, which is actually separate. But anyway, as an adult, it just, everything Disney makes me smile. So that's where we are. We'll talk more about Disney in a minute. Next up, Avengers by Jonathan Hickman. So when I got into comics, I got in with House of X. And what's funny is when I was reading House of X, I would watch a lot of YouTube videos about it, and everybody was super excited. And they're like, oh, we can trust Jonathan Hickman because we saw what he did with Avengers, and we saw what he did with Fantastic Four. So we know it's going to be great. And here I was with no knowledge of any of it. So I was like, look, if they ever reprint that Avengers omnibus, I'm getting it. And here we are. Avengers by Jonathan Hickman, Volume 1. It's finally mine. I've not read any of it, so we'll see if it stays among the favorites. What's crazy is this went out of print super quick, and I ended up having to get it from Amazon. And you guys know I hate buying books from Amazon. OPB me, please. Learn my lesson. Definitely pre-ordering Volume 2. Anyway. Another collected edition from the good folks over at OPB. This is Doom Patrol, the deluxe edition by Gerard Way and Nick Darrington, Volume 1. So I grabbed this because I've never read a Doom Patrol book, but I love Nick Darrington's art. I first encountered Nick Darrington's, filled up my memory card. Anyway, I first encountered Nick Darrington's artwork on the Batman Universe series by Brian Michael Bendis. Loved it. And people sang the praises of his Doom Patrol art as well. So I had to grab it. And then when I started thumbing through, I was not disappointed by the art at all. Like, this is my type of carrying on. This is just some really cool, fun, interesting stuff. Like, it's just dope. It's cartoony. And I feel like the cartoony vibe just fits the Doom Patrol. They're like, fighting with monsters and finding weird people with powers and all this stuff. This just looks like a whimsical series, and the art is just perfect for that. So, Doom Patrol Deluxe Edition by Gerard Way and Nick Darrington made it to Kix's favorite things. All right. And the last collected edition that made it to my favorite things this month, you knew it was coming, or maybe you didn't, but this is the Savage Avengers Omnibus by, who wrote this? Jerry Duggan and some other people. I gotta remember like what the Zurcher dude's name is, but Mike Deodato Jr., Juan Tartaglia, is it Juan? Hava, Tamara Bond Villain on colors, Patch Zurcher. Anyway, Savage Avengers. This is a series that came out basically when I started reading comics. I came to a free comic book day event in 2019, and the Savage Avengers book was one of the free comic book day books I picked up. I thought it was the most random team ever. We got Wolverine, the Punisher, Venom, Conan, Brother Voodoo, Elektra. Who are these people and why are they together? But it was a pretty bloody issue, and I ended up like not actually picking up the series. Then I found out you can't really pick up the series if you didn't pick it up because Marvel lost the rights to Conan. I was like, well, that means the only way for me to own this is to own this. So Savage Avengers by Jerry Duggan. This collects the 28 issue series that started in 2019 and the first annual, the 0 issue, the Empire Savage Avengers book, and the 2019 Free Comic Book Day issue, which is when I got started in comics. So sentimental book, fun book, limited book. That's why I made it to my favorite things. I'm gonna make sure that stack doesn't fall. All right, now let's take a look at the single issues that made it to my favorite things. So this one, this is the Disney 100 variant for the Amazing Spider-Man issue 21, if I remember correctly. But this has Goofy doing his best Incredible Hulk impression, which is great. I've been enjoying all the Disney 100 variants because, like I said, I was a Disney kid, so they just bring me joy to look at. One day, I'll have a wall big enough to display them. Next up, had to bring this one into my favorite things. This is Action Comics issue 1053. Actually just came out this past week, last Wednesday in March. But Action Comics by Philip Kennedy Johnson has been amazing. It's been that way for like the last 2 years. I think I shouted it out last month, but it's still amazing. Rafa Sandoval's on artwork, and that gives it a level up. The only thing that I don't like is that DC has switched to like this newsprint paper stock. So all the colors are just muddy and darker than they should be. But I'm excited to get this digitally, or hopefully we get like a deluxe hardcover of all this stuff on better paper stock. That would make my day. If you're not reading Action Comics, you need to be reading Action Comics. It's everything that you think a superhero comic should be. And there's family. It's great. Next up, another set of books. Well, no, I'll leave that. Next up, this is the second printing variant for Static Shadows of Dakota issue number 1. So Shadows of Dakota is 2 issues deep right now. I can't wait for issue 3 next month. Written and drawn by my guy, Nicholas Draper Ivy, with some support by Vita Ayala, of course. But this second printing variant is a design variant, of course, featuring Static in a look that's inspired by his original costume. You might remember Static had like the little unibody spandex suit with that lightning bolt going right there. He had the big yellow raincoat. Well, now this looks like a more updated sort of fashionable version. We got Static in a trench coat with a sweatsuit on, and his sweatshirt's got the lightning bolt. He's got a little snapback cap on. Like, it's just dope. But beyond the fact that it's a great cover, which is why it's all my favorite things, Static getting a second printing, it's just a sign of really, really good success that is much needed for the Milestone line. In my opinion, like, this means things are working and Milestone's getting the shine and spotlight it deserves. So, favorite things, you already knew I was going to throw some Milestone in there. Next up is another really cool grab that represents the beginning of me working with a publisher. So Dynamite Entertainment actually sent this book over. This is Supercade, a visual history of the video game age from 1985 to 2001. If you know me, you know I'm born in 1991. And what's cool about this book, this is actually is a sequel to another Supercade book that kind of highlighted the history of video arcades and going into like sort of home entertainment systems. And this kind of captures like the console era's heyday, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis. When I was dead broke, your mother couldn't picture this. But no, yeah. Anyway, supercade, the console era, Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation. Whenever video games became like ubiquitous, this chronicles that era and has like really cool pages just showing off art and giving you the history and background behind a lot of those things. So it's really cool to thumb through this and see something like this, like the Super Mario 64, for example. So really cool. We're going to do an overview of this book on the channel too. So I'm not going to keep bringing it up here, but that was a really cool thing. And Dynamite, along with that, decided to send a couple of rare variants for their Gargoyles series and their Darkwing series, respectively. You guys know I've been all over the Darkwing Duck series. I've also been all over Gargoyles, although I've been enjoying Darkwing more. But again, cool limited variants. This Mirka Andolfo cover is amazing. This David Nakayama cover is amazing. They're limited. I got like certificate of authenticity. But beyond the contents of the book, it's sentimental to me because, again, I've never worked with a real comic book publisher before. You know, I talk to a lot of indie creators and I get to sample books from here time to time. But this is just a milestone for the channel and one that could not be achieved without you guys. And so hopefully, you know, I get to keep spotlighting really cool books and you guys keep watching them and creators get to be featured because of it and so on. Hopefully this is like kind of the beginning of a different era for Comics Are Dope. That's why this is special. And that rounds out the list of my favorite things for the month of March 2023. A lot of things added to the collection, and I expect that there will be more as time goes on. Hope you guys bought some things that you enjoyed as well. Listen, comics is not about how much you buy. It's about what you enjoy and really spending time with books that make you happy. So whether you got 3 books or 18 books this month, listen, all I know is I hope you're reading something dope.